You think you understand how to learn something deeply. You don't. It's a quiet assumption you carry around, isn't it? You open a book, scroll through an article, watch a well-made video like this one, and when the ideas feel familiar, you nod to yourself and move on. You highlight passages, take a few notes in the margins, maybe even repeat a clever phrase to a friend later that day. And in that moment, it feels solid, like the knowledge has settled inside you, ready whenever you need it. But lean in a little closer, because that feeling is remarkably fragile. It's like collecting loose coins in a jar, pennies and nickels of facts clinking together, making a satisfying metallic sound when you shake it. From the outside, the jar looks full, impressive even. You can hear the weight of it. Yet when you try to buy something real with those coins, when you actually need to spend the knowledge, you tip the jar and they scatter everywhere, rolling under furniture, useless until you pick them up one by one and string them into a chain you can wear. Think about the route to a close friend's house. You've driven there dozens of times, maybe hundreds. The turns feel automatic, the landmarks familiar. You're certain you know the way, but one evening your phone dies and someone in the passenger seat asks you to describe the directions out loud, step by step, from memory. Suddenly, the confidence wavers. Was it left or right at the gas station with the faded sign? Did you pass the school before or after the railroad tracks? The path that felt so clear when you were moving along, it dissolves into vague impressions the moment you try to hand it to someone else. That's what most learning is like. Recognizable when you're following someone else's map, but astonishingly thin when you have to draw it yourself. Or, picture this. A leaky faucet in your kitchen keeps you awake at night with its steady drip. You search for a tutorial, find a calm voice walking through the steps. Watch carefully as the wrench turns and the washer is replaced. It looks straightforward. You tell yourself you've got it. Then the next day, you kneel under the sink, tools in hand, water shut off, and the reality arrives. The space is tighter than the video suggested. The old washer crumbles when you touch it. The angles don't feel the same. What seemed perfectly clear on the screen now feels distant, almost theoretical. Your hands hesitate. The knowledge you thought you owned evaporates the moment real friction appears. This isn't about being careless or lazy. It's simply how the mind works when left to its own quiet illusions. We're remarkably good at convincing ourselves we understand because superficial familiarity is comfortable. It lets us move through the world without constant doubt. But deep understanding, the kind that stays with you when the lights go out, the kind you can rebuild from scratch or hand to a child without hesitation, that's something else entirely. It's quieter, slower, and far more honest about its own gaps. There was a boy growing up in Queens, New York, who loved taking things apart. Radios, clocks, anything with wires and mystery inside. His name was Richard Feynman, though back then he was just Richie. The kid who fixed neighbors' broken sets for a few cents and spent the money on more broken things to tinker with. He wasn't proclaimed a genius early on. No one pinned medals on him for curiosity. He simply liked figuring out how the world worked, piece by piece, until the pieces made sense in his own hands. That habit stayed with him through college, through graduate school, through the strange, bright years at Los Alamos and beyond. But even he, with his quick mind and playful questions, arrived at a moment that unsettled him deeply. He was studying physics at a level most people never approached. Advanced textbooks, complex lectures, equations filling blackboards from edge to edge. He could solve the problems, recite the formulas, pass every exam. Yet one ordinary afternoon, he tried to explain a basic phenomena to someone who wasn't a physicist. Something as simple as why the sky is blue or how a magnet pulls across empty space. The words stumbled. The concepts that lived comfortably in his notebooks and on exam papers suddenly felt slippery when he reached for plain language. He realized, with a quiet shock, that much of what he called understanding was really a kind of performance. Impressive to experts, hollow to everyone else, and perhaps even to himself when no one was watching. Pause here for a moment. and let the question settle gently. Have you ever tried to explain something you were certain you knew, maybe to a younger sibling, a parent, a friend who doesn't share your interests, and felt the explanation falter halfway through? The sentences trail off, the examples don't quite land, and a small silence opens up. That silence is more honest than any confident nod you've ever given yourself. It's the sound of the illusion cracking. Feynman didn't scold himself or give up. He treated the discomfort the way he treated everything curious, as an invitation. And in that invitation, he found something disarmingly simpler: blank notebook and a willingness to admit, on paper, what he didn't actually know. That small, almost childlike act became the quiet engine behind everything people later called his genius. Not lightning flashes of insight, not endless hours of grinding memorization, but a steady habit of thinking on paper until the loose coins became a chain. The vague route became a clear map. The watch tutorial became something he could do with his eyes closed. This discomfort, this willingness to sit with the gaps, led him to a method that changed everything, not just for him, but for anyone willing to pick up a pen and face their own pleasant illusions. Imagine us sitting together at a quiet wooden table, the kind with scratches from years of use, a fresh notebook open between us, its blank pages staring up like an invitation you're not entirely sure you want to accept. The air is still, maybe a faint scent of coffee lingering, and I'm handing you a pin, not to take notes on what I say, but to start something of your own, because that's where Feynman's method begins. Not with grand revelations or complex systems, but with this simple act of facing a clean sheet and admitting, right at the top, what you don't fully grasp. You pick a topic, anything that nags at you. Say, how a rainbow forms, or why your phone battery dies faster in the cold, and you title the page something honest and a bit provocative. Things I don't know about rainbows. There's a slight unease in writing that down, isn't there? It's like confessing a secret to the paper. But that's the point. The title forces you to drop the pretense from the start. Now, with the pen in your hand, you begin to write what you think you know. Not in fancy terms or copied phrases from somewhere else, but in your own plain words. As if you were explaining it to a wide-eyed child who's just asked why the sky bends light into colors after a storm. You might start with sunlight hitting raindrops. The way it splits and bounces inside like a ball in a pinball machine, emerging as a spectrum. Keep it simple, conversational, the kind of talk you'd have over breakfast. But here's where it gets interesting and a little uncomfortable. As you write, you'll hit spots where the explanation thins out. Why does red bend less than blue? What makes the arc so perfect? When that happens, don't gloss over it or pretend it's fine. Mark the gap boldly. Maybe with a big question mark or a circled blank space that demands attention. It's like sketching a map of your neighborhood. From memory, you draw the main streets confidently, the park where you walk your dog. But then you reach that corner with the old oak tree and realize you're not sure if the bakery is to the left or right. Instead of fudging the line, you leave it dashed. A visual reminder that the map isn't complete yet. That marked gap isn't a failure. It's the quiet pull that drives you forward. You set the notebook aside for a moment, maybe grab a book, talk to someone who knows more, or even just sit and think harder and chase down the missing piece. For the rainbow, you might recall or look up how water droplets act like tiny prisms, bending shorter wavelengths more sharply. But don't just add it in like a patch. Return to the page and rebuild the whole explanation from scratch, weaving in the new bits seamlessly, starting over if you have to, until it flows without hitches. This rebuilding is where the real work happens. Like taking apart an old radio that's been gathering dust in the garage, you unscrew the back, lay out the wires and tubes on the table, trace each connection with your finger, and then put it all back together, not just functional, but better, with a clearer hum, because now you see how every part relies on the others. The notebook becomes that table, a space where ideas get disassembled and reassembled until they click. And as you refine it, you simplify relentlessly. Read what you've written aloud. Does it sound like jargon or like a story anyone could follow? If it's too wordy, Strip it down until it feels almost too obvious. Then simplify again. Explain the rainbow's curve as the angle of sunlight creating a circle we only see half of. Like peeking at a full moon through a window and mistaking it for a semicircle, this pushing towards simplicity uncovers more gaps sometimes, looping you back. But that's the beauty it turns learning into a conversation with yourself, one that doesn't end until the child in your mind nods with genuine understanding. It's far slower than firing off a text message with a quick fact, but think about writing a love letter instead. The paper demands you choose each word with care, lingering on the curves of the letters, revealing emotions you might skim over in a hurried demo. The notebook does the same for ideas. It slows you, makes you deliberate, and in that deliberation, the understanding deepens. Feynman lived this method through his notebooks, filling them not with flawless lectures, but with messy drafts, crossed-out lines, and triumphant rebuilds. He'd pick a thorny problem in physics, like how particles interact at the quantum level, and start with what he thought he knew, explaining it as if to a curious neighbor over fence chatter. Gaps appeared assumptions he'd never questioned, and he'd hunt them down, sometimes deriving entire theories anew just to plug the hole. Mistakes weren't erased. They were stepping stones, reminders that true insight comes from wrestling with the unknown on the page. You might feel a subtle unease trying this yourself, the vulnerability of seeing your thoughts in ink, but that's the slightly provocative edge. It challenges the comfortable myth that knowledge arrives fully formed. Instead, it's forged piece by piece in these quiet sessions at the table. And once you've simplified to the bone, you close the notebook with something solid. Not just facts, but a rebuilt intuition, ready for the world's frictions. This isn't about becoming a genius overnight. It's about cultivating that calm curiosity that turns illusions into something real, one page at a time. Now that you've felt the method, let's use it together on something you think you understand perfectly. It's one of those quiet certainties in your life, isn't it? You glance at your watch, feel the weight of a birthday passing, or notice the afternoon sun shifting shadows across the room, and it all seems so obvious, so woven into every breath and step. But pause for a momentarily pause and ask yourself if you could explain it from scratch, without falling back on habits or feelings. That slight hesitation, it's the crack where curiosity slips in. So imagine us back at that table, the notebook still open, but now we're starting a fresh page together. At the top, in bold letters, we write, "Things I don't know about time." There's a gentle provocation in those words, a reminder that even the most familiar things hide depths. Take a breath, pick up your imaginary pen, or better yet, grab a real one later, and let's apply the method live, step by step, rebuilding this puzzle on the page until it reveals its quiet mysteries. We start simple. Just like before, write down what you think you know about time in your own words. As if telling a story to that curious child, time feels like the steady tick of a clock on the wall, marking seconds that add up to minutes, hours, days. It's the way your body ages, a wrinkle appearing where smooth skin once was, or hair turning gray like autumn leaves fading. Picture your morning coffee, hot and steaming at first, then cooling to lukewarm as you sip, never reheating on its own no matter how long you wait. And memories, they pile up behind you, clear from yesterday but fuzzier from childhood, always pointing backward while the future stretches blank and open. Jot that down in the notebook. The everyday feel of time as a one-way street, carrying you from breakfast to bed, from youth to whatever comes next. It's comfortable, this description, drawn from habits like brushing your teeth or walking the dog, rituals that unfold in sequence. Never rewinding, but as you write, let the words sit there on the page. Does it feel complete? Or is there a nagging pull, a spot where the explanation thins? Here's where we probe deeper, ask the question that exposes the gap. Why does time only go forward? Why can you spill a glass of milk across the kitchen floor, watching it spread into a messy puddle, but never see it leap back into the glass, neat and contained? Mark that boldly on the page, maybe with a big question mark circling it. It's unsettling, isn't it? Your intuition screams that reverse just doesn't happen, like trying to unscramble an egg after it's been fried or watching a messy bedroom tidy itself without a single hand lifting a sock. Think of that bedroom analogy: clothes strewn on the floor, books toppled from the shelf, dust gathering in corners. It got that way through your daily habits, dropping a shirt after a long day, bumping the nightstand. But imagine running the scene backward, socks flying into drawers, books stacking themselves, dust vanishing. Absurd, right? Sketch a quick diagram in your notebook, before and after of the room. Arrows showing the mess increasing. That visual forces you to confront why your gut rejects the reverse. It's not impossible in some abstract sense, but it never happens in the world you touch and see. Don't hide from the gap. Chase it. Go find the missing piece, perhaps recalling a quiet insight from physics that Feynman loved to play with. At the tiniest level, the laws governing atoms and particles are reversible. Picture those atoms like billiard balls on a table, collide them, and you could run the tape backward, every bounce undoing itself perfectly without breaking any rules. So why doesn't the spilled milk return to the page and rebuild? It's because of the sheer number of ways things can be arranged. There are far more ways for atoms to be disordered, scattered, mixed, chaotic, then ordered and neat. Like shuffling a deck of cards, getting them back to perfect suit order by random shakes is possible, but so unlikely you'd wait lifetimes for it. In your coffee cup, heat spreads out because molecules jiggle into every available space, increasing disorder. Cooling reverses that only if every jiggle aligns just right, which never happens by chance. Draw that in the notebook: a simple sketch of gas expanding in a balloon, particles spreading wide, arrows showing the one-way drift toward mess. This is entropy, that subtle measure of disorder, emerging not from some iron law, but from probability. Janelle tilt. Your macroscopic world, the one of eggs and bedrooms, feels irreversible because you're dealing with trillions of particles, where order is the rare exception. As you simplify this on the page, explaining it like a bedtime story, the universe preferring clutter, because clutter has more room to exist, another gap might appear. Why does time feel uniform to you but bend in strange ways? Touch this gently, without overwhelming. Imagine strapping into a rocket blasting toward the stars at incredible speed. To you, inside time ticks, normally your heart beats. You age a day. But to a friend watching from Earth, your clock slows, seconds stretching like taffy, or stand near a massive pole like the edge of a black hole's gravity. Time drags there too, measured by precise instruments, not your feelings. Sketch a quick trampoline in the notebook fabric, sagging under a heavy ball, representing space-time curved by massed pads bending around it. Your intuition fails because you've never felt those extremes. Your habits are grounded in slow walks and steady gravity. Rebuild the explanation. Time isn't a rigid ruler. It's flexible, personal, woven with space into something we call space. Simplify. Time slows for the fast or the heavy, proven by clocks on planes running fractions slower than those on the ground. Pushing further, let's end this notebook entry with the cosmos, where time's arrow points to the grandest scale. Why does the universe have this forward push at all? Chase that gap. It started with the Big Bang, a hot, dense point of astonishing order, low entropy, like a perfectly wound clock. From there, it expands, cools, unwinds. Stars ignite and burn out. Galaxies spin apart, increasing disorder toward a vast, cold, quiet. Your life fits in as a brief island, a pocket of order where you eat foods, stored energy, turning it into motion and thought, while exhaling chaos, negative entropy in a sea of Draw one last sketch, a timeline from bang to fade, your small dot in the middle, a temporary eddy against the flow. As you close this mental page, Reflect. You thought time was obvious, a simple backdrop to your days. Now, you see it's one of the deepest mysteries we live inside, every day emerging from chance, bending with motion, rooted in a cosmic beginning we barely grasp. And that feeling of slight unease. It's not confusion, it's AOD, the quiet thrill of peeking behind the curtain. Feynman never claimed final answers. He carried a notebook, stayed curious, and invited the universe to surprise him. You can do the same. All it takes is a blank page, a pen, and the quiet courage to write "I don't know" at the top. The rest unfolds from there. Pause the video now, open a real notebook, and try the method on anything one small question today. The genius isn't in the answers you find. It's in the questions you dare to write down.